All right, welcome back, everybody, to the NARPM podcast or NARPM Radio show. And I have me RVP extraordinaire, AJ Shepard out of Portland. AJ, thanks so much for being here today, buddy.
Pete, thanks for having me on the show.
So, AJ, I know the last time I saw you speak was at a non-NARPM event, and you were talking about syndication. But let's talk a little bit more before we talk about that, because I think that's a really interesting topic that a lot of people want to know about. Tell me about your journey. So you started a property management firm and you really wanted to work with a lot of investors. So how did you get into the property management deal and just kind of take us through that journey?
Sure. It really starts out with my dad. He was in real estate. So we kind of had some upbringing in real estate. My brother and I started purchasing properties, fixing them up, refinancing them, and then moving it into another property. I mean, if you're familiar with Bigger Pockets, it's the BRRRR method. So we acquired several properties, enough that we were like, oh man, we probably could use some extra income. So we started the property management company, and then also along with that, our construction company. And all along the while, we kept buying properties. We've bought multiple properties every year, and that's one of the ways that we add to our property management portfolio is by purchasing properties. And so
you came in from the investor side versus the real estate side.
Yeah.
On this. So you talked about a little bit about Bigger Pockets. So can you tell us a little bit about what Bigger Pockets is, and is there any value of a property manager to be part of Bigger Pockets?
Oh, absolutely. Bigger Pockets is a social network for real estate investors and real estate professionals. Getting on there and answering questions in the forums of real estate investors that maybe don't have a lot of experience will kind of give you rapport as a person and a brand. So being active on there is super beneficial. I actually find a lot of investors from Bigger Pockets, and we've found property management clients, and it's just a good network to continue to do. But it takes time answering questions. You kind of get the same ones over and over again, and it's just about being consistent. So figuring out a process to really be consistent with it. Typically, I have a remote professional scour the forums and pick a question and answer it, and then I approve the message and then have them do it for me. So that helps out a lot.
Nice. A little look behind the curtain there. I
right.
like it. But yeah, I mean, think about it, right? You're a property management firm. What's our target client? One of our number one target clients is investors. Investors live in Bigger Pockets, and answering questions makes you the authority figure. And so, yeah, there's a lot of potential clients there to fish in that pond. So, big fan of that. So, tell me, AJ, what are some of the things that you have done to attract investors? Like how does Uptown, your property management firm there in Portland, attract investors? What are some of the things that you're doing to find investors to manage their properties?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different marketing aspects, right? Like Google ads for one, making sure that we have lots of good reviews. One of the things that we learned is CRM, which is a customer review management system that's helped out. If you ever see my signature, there's like a thumbs up, thumbs down. I think it's grade.us. And it really helps with if you get a bad review, it comes in internally as opposed to out in public. So definitely managing the reviews and getting up on the top of Google helps with the organic search. Introducing ourselves. We've done local marketing, like a LaTip or a BNI, participating in community events. Like there's a plethora of ways, and it's not that one is like the best, but they all work a little bit. And it all builds on itself too. Like the more that you can figure out how to do, the better off that you're going to be. And granted, there's only 24 hours in a day. So figuring out a process to have that delegated so that somebody does it for you is going to be the best.
Did you create a like an investor club or like start doing some investor workshops in your area before you started doing the syndication?
Yeah. So we, my brother and I run a podcast. It's called West Side Investors Network. We're located on the West Coast. We are also located on the west side of Portland. And so we provide education to investors on syndication through that podcast. We did at one time have like a meetup where we were doing it monthly. We've discontinued that, but that was another way to meet like local investors. Typically, like there'll be other, what is it, like Northwest Real Estate Investors Association. It's a RIA is another great way to like find local investors in your market. We've attended those events. There's another one that's local here that probably isn't everywhere. It's called Investor Lab. I know the guy that runs that. We're pretty good friends, which is fun. But yeah, like running a group and providing education is another great marketing tactic to bring, people into the fold and into your brand.
Yeah, my feeling is anytime you can be the guy with the microphone or on the stage, you are the expert, right? People come to you. So I think you and your brother have done an amazing job. I know your podcast is we'll talk a little bit about that, but I know a lot of people listen to that, right? And I like the fact that it's area specific. I got a good buddy of mine, Mark Ainley. He does one for Chicago, and like he is like, if you're going to invest in Chicago, like he's the guy now. You got
to listen to him because he's the expert, right?
He's the expert. So I believe if there's anything you can do in your market to make you the expert, you're going to attract investors. And there's going to be a bunch that just use your knowledge and then they go do their own thing. But there's going to be a bunch that use your knowledge and then hire you, right? They either hire to help them find a place, or they hire you to manage the place. So
yeah, and I think a lot of people have like this kind of daunting, like, oh, starting a podcast, that's so hard, and like all this sort of stuff. And the first couple episodes, it's going to be tough. You're going to stumble your way through, but after,
or 2 years later, if you're doing a NARPM podcast, you stumble your way through, like
something like that, right? But I mean, yeah, it's hard to set up, but I come back to like systems and processes, right? Like the more that you can create a system and a process, like our podcast, my brother and I literally just show up for the meeting. Otherwise, we've got it systematized where we've got another remote professional helping us do all of it, including all the social media sharing, getting the guest speakers set up, all that sort of stuff, and all that.
Yeah, you like the Dr. Oz of property management, right? Dr. Oz, famously in one of his books, he talks about like when he does surgery, he goes in, everything is done. He just goes, does the surgery, and he leaves. When he does a show, he goes there, everything is done. He just goes, does the show, and he's gone. And so
and I mean, like that sort of concept kind of.
Was that?
I guess the like systems and processes concept like just spreads over your entire company.
Yeah.
Figuring out how to. I'm very much like, how can I delegate this, or how can I set it up so that someone else can do it? And it's a lot of work up front, but in the end, if you can set it up so that someone else can do it, you can free up your time and then come talk on NARPM Radio.
I think the main thing here though is you can become the expert in your market just by creating a podcast or creating some video content and putting the YouTube channel, like really give a lot of information. Too many of us want to just promote ourselves, and it's not about promoting, right? It's about educating. And if you can educate, then you will get the business. There was one guy, and he's going to kill me because I forgot his name. I think he was out in California. You know what he actually did, AJ? He actually did a class on how to manage properties for investors that was self-managing. And I'm like, well, why would you do that? You teach them how to manage. And he's like, well, Pete, here's what happens, right? I get 10, 15 people to show up to the class. It's a couple $100. That's not the money maker. Because by the end of the class, he goes, I get 5 of them to tell me they want me to manage their properties.
Well, they come and learn how much work it is. And they're like, man, I don't want to do that.
I got to learn about what? I got to do this. I got to do that. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. So if you're listening to this, that's another way, like just literally create a course and then go to your local real estate investment clubs and promote the course on how to manage your property, or connect with those real estate groups and offer to give them the course for free and teach the course. And then you become the expert in front of a bunch of investors. So just another way. So let's kind of fast forward this thing. I was just amazed at this whole syndication thing. I've done this really, really small when I bought some apartment complexes, but
Nice.
tell us what made you come to build the syndication. How'd you do it? And I know you offer a class on it, so I'd love you to plug that as well. But talk a little bit about what syndication is, and then kind of step through on how you ended up coming to this, building this
Sure. Sure. So for those of you that aren't familiar with syndication, we essentially put together a company to pool investors' money together to buy a larger asset. We're specifically in like multifamily. We try to take C class and turn it into B class through construction and property management. A lot of the properties that we like a couple of years ago, we bought properties that still had paper leases, and I'm sure all of you are listening and be like, what? But they do exist out there, right? And so there's ways to improve technology and improve the property. And when you add value to something, you significantly increase the value. So so essentially every asset that we purchase with syndication is its own LLC. We raise funds for it. So
now the funds you're raising for it, or is it typically the down payment and the and all the construction has to go there, or is it just the down payment and you fund the construction from the rents? Like what's the normal what's your normal business model?
Yeah, so we definitely have a capital budget. So we determine that before we, kind of during the due diligence period of a contract, we'll determine, okay, what actually needs to be done? Like, do the roofs need to be done? Do the siding? How many units do we need to turn in order to fund the rest of like the unit turns with the rents? So we'll put together that budget and we will raise that money. So
do you find the property first, or do you raise the money first?
We find the property first. So typically with like commercial purchases, it's usually like a 60 to 90 day purchase. And then we'll write in 2 30-day extensions, and we will have like some escrow money go hard. So, we're probably paying $50,000 for each 30-day extension.
Okay. Now, as you do this and you become more and more successful with each purchase, my guess is you're starting to have more and more people want to give you money. And so all of a sudden, now the deal becomes the issue, not the money. Where in the very beginning, you were probably able to find the deal, and then the money was the challenge. At what point does that flip?
That's kind of a tough question. Like, I think with any business, there's always like a bottleneck, right? So if you're like trying to grow, it's at one point it's the deals, at the next point it's the money, and then like as you get bigger and bigger, it kind of goes back and forth, is what I would say. We definitely have repeat investors. We started doing syndication like in 2020, and currently we've got our first 2 up for sale, which is awesome. The first one, our investors are looking at making a 30 to 40% per year return on their money.
Wow, that's pretty solid.
And the second one, they're kind of looking at like a 17 to 20% per year on their money. So those were smaller. And when we first started out, we actually picked a deal that we could have just bought ourselves. So we were kind of the backstop of like, oh, if we can't raise the money, we can't do it. And what we found is that raising the money was actually not that hard. And that was when we were like, oh, okay, let's keep going. And so the first one, we started out with a 9 unit, and then we went to a 12 unit, and then a 20 unit, and then then a 25 unit, and then a 30 unit. And then recently we just bought a 47 unit.
Nice.
For $10.5 million, and we raised $5 million for it.
So when you look at these properties, are you already looking at like what the exit strategy is? So like, hey, you're going to invest this money in this deal. We're going to do X, Y, and Z, and in 3 years, 5, 6, 7, whatever years, we're going to go ahead and sell. Is that something that's pretty standard?
I mean, so when we look at a property, we've got, you want to compare apples to apples, right? So we've got a pro forma that we fill out for every property.
So tell everybody what a pro forma is, if you don't mind.
Pro forma is essentially adding up all the costs, all the budgets, adding up like what the rents are going to be, and forecasting out like how is this asset going to perform. And so there's some big assumptions in there. If you're familiar with commercial real estate, like a lot of brokers look at cap rate. So in the past year, we've seen interest rates just skyrocket. So cap rates in turn have like gone up. And when a cap rate goes up, the asset value goes down. So we try to always in our pro forma be very conservative. So we usually budget rental increases at like 3%, costs increase at 2%. And then we always have, like, if we buy at a cap rate, we always add a point to that cap rate. So like in this case right now in the Portland market, like cap rates a year ago were about 4.5, maybe 5. And now they're looking at like 5.5, 6. So we've kind of underwritten like some leniency in there, some fluff, so that when we're looking at a deal, we know that we're going to make money. We're not going to lose. I mean, the last thing you want to do is lose investors' money. So
what are you looking at? Like, how long are you going to hold this thing? Like, it's not open-ended, right? Like you say, this is a 5-year deal and you need your money back. Like, or are you like thinking like, I'm going to refinance at this and we're going to hold this long-term? Like, what is your main strategy? It seems like it's a buy, rehab, get rents up, increase NOI, and sell. But is that right, or is there other strategies depending on the asset that you're buying?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the deal. The latest one that we did, we bought with a Freddie Mac loan, and like the plan is to refinance it in 2 years and then sell it in 7. So typically there's a 5-year term on that second loan that we're going to get. But I mean, it's just like kind of what makes sense for the asset. Like we try to model all of our deals at a 5-year hold and sell. And that way our investors, when they're looking at our documents, can like compare apples to apples. So they're not seeing like a ton of different stuff. But like we're looking to maximize the profit. Like honestly, as the person that manages the asset, we get paid on performance. So the larger the profit that we can make for the investors, the larger profit that goes in our pocket. So we are very much incentivized to, keep the time period down as small as possible and keep the increase in the property value and the profit as high as possible.
You typically do distributions, and if so, is it monthly, quarterly, yearly, and then how does that typically work?
Yeah, so we typically do quarterly distributions. In the deals, there's a waterfall, and that goes with like how the syndicator or us we get paid. And typically we do like a 7% preferred return, so we'll pay investors 7% before we take any fees. And so like as an investor, they're like, oh, okay, I'm getting 7% before these guys even get paid. Like I'm at least going to get that. And then like we have a hurdle. So a lot of private placements is what these are called. They're regulated under the SEC. And there's an exemption that we use. It's called 506B that says that, we're not having investors invest that maybe aren't accredited, but they're definitely known to us. So there's a couple of exemptions with the SEC that allows syndicators to do these sort of deals. But yeah, so we do quarterly distributions. We're paying that 7%. Usually it starts day one. I actually invested with another guy and he does monthly. And I'm like, it's pretty cool. Wow. Kind of like property management clients. It's like, all right, I'm getting a check in the bank every month. And like, it kind of reminds them. So we're kind of toying with the idea of moving to monthly. With technology the way it is and ACH payments, like it's super easy to like press that button. Whereas, 5, 10, 15 years ago, they're cutting checks and sending checks and it's maybe a bigger lift. So we are toying with that idea. Haven't done it yet, but it's something on possibly
on a typical syndication. When you guys get investors, how much are they getting ownership? Are they like, I'll give you an example. Like when I was buying apartment complexes here in Houston, I'd go get money and I would give basically 80% of the deal. And I as the lead partner would put no money in, but I put the sweat equity in and I'd get 20% of the deal. Is that something, is it similar like that in syndications or do you guys own a percentage of the deal without putting money in for finding and putting it all together? Like, how does that work?
I mean, we invest in all of our deals. So we have some portion. Typically, so the way a syndication's set up, it's very similar to probably what you did. But There's two parts. There's the general partner and then the limited partner. And so the general partner is like the manager, which is like us as a syndicator, and then the limited partner is investors, which we call LPs. There's two different class shares in the LLC, and my brother and I own, all of the GP shares. And then the LP or the investor shares is just split equally to the amount of money that we raise. So if we're raising $1 million and an investor puts in $100,000, then they've got 10% equity. And it's a straight split that way. Again, we're only paid off the profits. So typically we have a GP split after a hurdle. So like I said before, there's that preferred return. So any return after the preferred return, we're going to, as the syndicator, take 20% of. And then if we hit the IRR hurdle, then we actually bump it up to 50%.
And then how does it work on the sale? Same way?
Yeah, it's the exact same way. So all the returns and distributions are added up collectively and to give like an overall return. So, first we return the investors' initial capital back, and then we start looking at the profits, and then we say, okay, 7% was this much over this time. And then, then after that, we take 20% of the money. And then once the investor makes a certain hurdle, our hurdle is ranging somewhere between 15 and 20% per year, or IRR. Internal rate of return is IRR, and that is a calculation that's time bound. So that's why, it's hard. It's a way to like kind of compare to the stock market is what I want to say. Is like, all the stocks are like, oh, that made 8-10% per year. And with real estate deals, it's a little bit tough to say, oh, I made 100% on my money in 5 years. Well, that's more like a 15-16% return per year.
Got it.
So an IRR kind of allows you to compare apples to apples a little bit better.
So if I'm listening to this and I'm like, man, I want to invest in a syndicate. I don't want to start one, but I might want to invest in one. What are some of the things that you should be looking for if you're going to invest in somebody who has a syndication?
Oh boy. Educate yourself. Know who you're investing with. Brian Burke runs Praxis Capital. They're like one of the really big players. He wrote a book. It's called The Hands-Off Investor. And that book goes through, like it's literally like 200 or 300 pages of like how to vet a sponsor, how to look at deals. So if you are interested, I would definitely say educate yourself. There's a lot of people out there that are just doing capital raising. So they're raising capital and then putting themselves kind of in with another GP. So like if we had a capital raiser, they could bring us $1 million on a $5 million deal, and we'd cut them a piece of the GP or something like that. They have to play an active role according to rules and whatnot, but you kind of create some task for them to do to be a part of that general partnership. So there's a lot of people out there saying that they're syndicators, but they're only raising money and then putting it with someone else. And there's a newer website out there. Some guys I met at a conference. It's called TribeVest, where they will. It's like for capital raisers.
Like Tribe.
So you kind of look. Yeah, Tribe. TRIBEVEST.
Got it. Okay.
And so as a property manager, say you've got 20, 30 investors and you want to raise $500,000 and put it with a deal, you would sign them all up on TribeVest and then take that $500K check to a sponsor and say, hey, cut me some better rates because I'm bringing you a lot of money at the same time. And then you can make some money off the arbitrage. If they pay an 8% preferred return and you pay your investors a 7%, then there's some ways to make some money that way too, if someone's interested in raising money for another sponsor.
Now, if I'm listening to this as a property manager, I'm like, man, I got all these investors. They're always asking me, for deals. And there's some stuff I can do here. I think I got something I can do. I can, get some money, whatever. What would be like, what are some of the options? Like syndication is one, but I mean, you're talking about SEC and you're talking about attorneys and all that stuff. It seems like a lot of work. Is there Is like that the only way, or is there other ways that you can think of where we just get a bunch of money and go buy some houses together, or is the syndication really the way to do this?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on how many investors you want to get together. Like, if you're getting 2, 3 guys together, like just forming an LLC is like the best way. But if you're looking at getting like 30, 40 people, you know, having a syndication model, I think, is probably the better bet. It just, with so many people, it makes it tough. So, I mean, raising $5 million, like, we probably had 30 or 40 different people in that deal.
Got it.
So it's just like, how big do you want to go and what do you want to do? And, more so I would say, like, find out what you want to do and then figure out how to get there.
Now you speak a lot about this. I've seen you speak, I think, twice now on syndications.
Yeah.
If somebody's listening to this though, and they're like, man, I want to either A, I want to get into some syndications with you, or B, I'd like to start my own deal. And I want AJ, I want you to help me out. Where do they go? Where do they go to get help from you?
I mean, my information's everywhere. So just hit me up. Happy to help as much as I can. You can find me on LinkedIn. Westside Investors Network is our podcast. If you're looking for a way to, make money in syndication or raising money, educating yourself is like the first.
Maybe I'm misinformed, but I thought you had a course that you teach. Are you not teaching? Okay.
Yeah, we have a coaching program, and the program takes, real estate professionals that want to get to the next level.
And what's the website for that?
It's just uptownsyndication.com, and then under the coaching program.
Uptownsyndication.com. Coaching.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've had a few people go through it, and they're working on still getting their first deal. So we've kind of, but it's been good.
You don't have to buy an apartment complex with it, right? You can go buy a package of house.
Yeah, I mean, syndication is the method. So you can there's guys that are doing. I went to a conference. This was the best ever conference by Joe Fairless, and there's guys.
Yeah, I know him.
Industrial complexes. There's people doing self-storage. There's people doing mobile homes. There's these guys. They're called, it's like happy camper, and they're buying like lake retreat places, and so it's like a bunch of campsites, and then they're like renting out these campsites, like improving the technology at those places. Like, it's probably a lot of mom and pop industry. A lot of mom and pops that have done it for 40 years and are looking to retire. And these guys are like, hey, we can put in, they have like paddleboard rentals, and they just put up a cage, and like people put their credit card in, and they like rent out the paddleboards. Like, all these like new ways to do stuff. And, the old mom and pops are like, well, this business has run fine for 40 years. Like, they're not looking to make changes and make improvements. So I think, with any asset, like trying to make some improvements and add value is really how you can leverage making a lot more money.
Is there any question I didn't ask that I should have asked about syndications or investing that you can think of?
I don't think so. I mean, it's a great tool. Bigger Pockets talks about, like, getting tools in your tool belt.
Are you surprised as much as I am about how many property management company owners don't own real estate?
Oh, I'm absolutely surprised. Like, using your own services it's eye-opening, because like you're on the other side now, and you're like, oh man, this sucks, and like you empathize with the owners a lot more, which is great.
Yeah.
But like on the flip side, like I mean, I know I'm talking to a bunch of property managers here, but wealth is created through the assets. It's not created through the property management company. And it's great to run a great property management company, but if you're really looking to create wealth and make a difference, like owning the property and participating in that upside is absolutely incredible. Like,
what's funny, man?
What's that?
What's funny is when I owned Empire and I actually I owned a bunch of real estate before I
Yeah.
started Empire. And then I ran Empire, and running a property management firm, especially in the very beginning, it's chaos, man.
Oh yeah.
It's like you're just trying to just keep yourself above water. I went 7 years before I bought another piece of property. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you is don't do what I did. Like there was so many deals that came across my desk that I'm like, I'm just too busy. I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Don't use that as an excuse, because as property managers, we probably get some of the best deals across our desk from.
Oh, absolutely. Like the property manager is the first one to look at them. Like,
and you have the history. And you have the history of the property.
Can help. Like you can provide that solution, and it can be a win-win deal for everyone.
Yeah. So I'm going to pivot here.
I got a question for you. Did you make money on those houses you purchased?
I still own a bunch of them. So yeah, so since 2020, all my houses have increased in value, where in Houston, that doesn't happen very often. We're pretty flat for the most part, but I'll just give you, I just did a deal in 2020. I bought 4 houses from an investor out in California. He owned 4 houses in Houston, didn't want them anymore. And I bought them for like $550. And the day I got them appraised, the day I bought them, they got appraised for $650. Today they're probably worth over $850. All those houses. Yeah. So yeah, it's well built. Now AJ asked me, do they cash flow for you? The answer is no, they don't freaking cash flow. There's always something going on. I got to pay the management firm. But
I mean, that's when you go to sell, that's going to be a significant cash flow or increase.
Correct. Because not just the appreciation, but the principal pay down.
Yeah,
they've been rented for the last,
Well, and you get to defer some taxes right now too because of all the depreciation that goes along with it. Like, it's those 4 ways to make money in real estate is tax depreciation, cash flow, appreciation, and then
depreciation and principal pay down. I think there's a 5th way. Everybody forgets about the principal pay down, but at the end of the day, these renters are paying your principal and interest for you. I call it forced savings.
That's what we say too. It's a forced savings account. Yeah,
it's a forced savings account. So I'm going to flip the script here a little bit because you are an RVP. You've been an RVP for a long time now. I think is this your 3rd term or 2nd?
This is my 4th year.
4th year. So the end of 2nd term, because it's the 2-year terms.
Well, I started out as a 1-year term in the Atlantic region, and then I had a 2-year term in the Pacific region.
Okay.
I'm finishing up a 1-year term in the Pacific, and this is be my last year because there's only 4 years that you can be RVP.
Interesting. Okay, did not know that. So all right, so tell me, I always like to ask people, especially that are on the national board, and you and I served together, so that's why I know you did quite some time. I think my last year was your 1st year. So, but tell me, what's your why? Why did you give back? Because on the board, you don't get many perks, and you have to, as an RVP, got to travel a lot, and you have to, and you got to work. So, what was your why? Why do you continuously give back to NARPM?
There's a lot of reasons. NARPM has helped. When we found NARPM back in like 2014, 2015, like it was incredible for our property management business. Like that wealth of knowledge and those connections and networking. And, honestly, I've developed like lifelong relationships through serving. You just get to be closer to a lot of different people and all over the nation with a bunch of different perspectives. And yeah, it might be a little self-serving, but I feel that I've like had a lot of development and growth in personal skills. Like being on the national board teaches you leadership, teaches you how to delegate better. You have to manage your time better. Like there's a lot of benefit to it. And honestly, like I like helping people out. We've been super successful, and there's no reason that everyone can't be super successful.
Amen to that, brother. All right, listen, we're going to take a quick break, and then the lightning round. That's our sound effects for NARPM, by the way.
Okay.
I don't have sound effects. That's it. So we'll be right back, and then we're going to put AJ through the lightning round. We'll be right back, everybody. All right, welcome back, everybody. And we got AJ Shepard on the hot seat or in the lightning round. AJ, are you ready?
All right, try not to stump me.
Okay, these are simple. What PM software do you use?
Sorry, you kind of cut out there.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
What PM software?
Yeah. What property management software do you use?
We use Appfolio.
Appfolio. What is your current organizational structure for your property management business?
We are departmental structure.
Just curious, how many units you guys manage?
We're about 1,000 units.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. Departmental. I know you answered this, but do you use virtual assistants?
We have a virtual assistants in mass. I think we have about 12 or 13 that work for us. Not all in the property management business. Like I have one dedicated to syndication. Both my brother and I have just personal assistants that kind of help us out with anything and everything.
I may have to ask you when we get off. I may have to ask you more about that. What is one piece of advice you'd give someone just starting out in the PM business?
Honestly, hire employees and figure out how to delegate quicker and get your time back.
I love it. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Absolutely. It's so sweet and good. And then salty against the pizza. Yes.
We were friends. What was your first job?
My first job was probably in college. Well, I actually was in high school. I was a phone person that called people to get surveys for ORC, Opinion Research Corporation.
Interesting.
Right? So yeah, that was probably like my first real job. I also like caddied for golf in a tournament, like when I was like 10 or 11, but that was only for like a week every year, but it was super fun.
I'm sure it was. What book are you currently reading, or what is one that's impacted your business or life?
I'm currently reading, I believe it's Leadership by Timothy McGraw. I don't know the author, but I was still working my way through it. It's a slog. It's like 11 hours on audiobook. A book that, I mean, we still use it, Never Lose a Customer Again. Like if you haven't read that, great for, setting up processes and systems and labeling stuff and actually talking about stuff and getting more human touches, has been really good. Yeah, I'm going to go with those off the top
Which
of my
Disney character do you most associate with?
Donald Duck.
I love it. What is one challenge you're currently facing in your business?
I think this is a challenge that like doesn't ever go away, but it's people. We are always constantly hiring, and also just finding those people. And currently wages are going up, so there's a lot of movement around. And when people go some other place, we've got to backfill the position. And so yeah, just finding the right people.
Last one. What do you prefer, dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Dog guy. All right, man. You're officially out of the lightning round.
Whew, I made it. Sweet.
All right. If someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, my information's all over. LinkedIn is great. Westside Investors Network is great. Uptown Syndication. Any one of those. If you want, you can email me, aj@uptownpm.com. And awesome. Yeah, look forward
to it. And if you want to join NARPM, please go to NARPM, narpm.org. If you're not a member, why not go join and or call them at 800-782-3452. And if you want to get your time back and your life back, like AJ says, hire some remote team members. Go to vpmsolutions.com and select from over now 28,000 profiles looking to work in the property management and housing industry. AJ, thanks so much for being here today, buddy. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.